Okay. Hello, seekers, wonderful friends, beautiful human beings. I've been asked by some friends to do a video on some subjects that they have suggested in a chat that we do. And so I'll do that. So question number one, what is true silence and how one can use it to progress spiritually and materially with wisdom? You cannot use silence. It's like trying to use yourself. How can you use yourself? To what objective? To what goal? And how to gain materially, how to progress spiritually and materially with wisdom, which really means how to gain materially and progress spiritually with wisdom. Okay. So what is true silence? It's first and foremost a silence of your identity, of your sense of identity. The true silence is when you are silent, which means when you are not there. So how one can use it? One cannot use it. The small one cannot use it. And the big one doesn't have any use for anything. So no, you can't use it. It's just that when you are in silence, and this silence may not be necessarily devoid of sound, but in that silence, there is no suffering. You are not there to suffer. Suffering is something that comes with the invention of oneself. So you invent a being, and together with that identity comes desires, expectations, and of course, worries about meeting them and about sustaining yourself as that concept of identity you have formulated in your mind. And that's suffering. So, in a sense, true silence, you recognize true silence by the absence of suffering. But to recognize the absence of suffering, it means already that you are back in the picture. So you are not truly in silence. It's possible to speak in silence. You can see me doing it occasionally, not always, but a good portion of the time. So if you know true silence, the question of using it to progress spiritually has no meaning, because you have reached a state where there is no progress required spiritually. And then materially, well, actually there is a sense of prosperity, of abundance in silence. But anytime you go back to material worries, you will fall out of silence and into suffering. And so my advice is to not try to benefit materially from silence. However, he ends his question by with wisdom. So wisdom is something else. Wisdom grows with silence, with your regular exposure to silence. So the more you experience silence, the more your wisdom will grow, your intelligence will grow. In fact, it's not that your intelligence is truly growing or that your wisdom is truly growing. It's simply that it's your bullshit that reduces. So you are less encumbered by bullshit, and therefore there is more space, more room for your wisdom to find its expression in your life. So yes, silence will grow your wisdom. And your wisdom can actually be occasionally used for material gain, provided it's done with wisdom, which means in a deep understanding of the dynamics at play and of the interests of all the parties concerned. So it requires a lot of intelligence to grow materially, to benefit or progress materially without building unnecessary karma, negative karma. It requires a lot of wisdom. So yes, in that sense, even if you want to grow materially, to progress materially in this life, it's required to, in a sustainable way, it's required to have wisdom. And a good way to increase your wisdom, or to seem to increase your wisdom, to simply stop reducing your wisdom, is by diving into silence, which means by not sustaining your sense of identity, your sense of separation from all that is, that you are. So that was for the first question. The second question, it's actually a suggestion. Please do a deep, audible interpretation of Tao Te Ching to progress spiritually as well as daily living with wisdom. Yes, this is a big request, but I think it's a very very valid and very potentially beneficial request. So this is something I'm going to look seriously into and possibly get started with it. Third question: how not to get sucked into the endless thoughts of grief and pity and panic in extremely challenging life situations and overcome them. Well, we go back to point number one with silence. The way you express it, how to not get sucked into the endless thoughts of grief and pity and panic in extremely challenging life situations and overcome them. Two different things. So first of all, not to get overcome, and then to overcome them. So not to get overwhelmed, by the situations, the extremely challenging situations, and then how to overcome them. Alors, in fact, in your question, it shows you actually have some understanding of the process, because the process, but it's a not complete understanding, because you say how to not get sucked. Nobody is sucking you into the endless thoughts of grief and pity and panic. You generate those thoughts. They are not there and sucking you into them. You, consciously or unconsciously, allocate your focus, your attention, your mind, and to a mind activity, actually, which is a mind activity of running a scenario about how things are used to be good in the case of grief, how they are bad now. It's your judgment in the sense of pity. And panic is when you build scenarios of a terrible future and you start believing in it. You believe that this is the most probable outcome, and that even it's the certain outcome that it's going to be that catastrophic scenario. So you get engaged in that mental activity. It doesn't suck you in. It's you who spiral yourself down this rabbit hole of interpretation, memory, self-pity, which is believing in your identity as a small self that has a lot of problems, grief about reminiscing in your memory, bringing to life your bad memories, pity, creating a character who has all these problems resulting from that grief, and panic because you see the trend is a scenario that is catastrophic and you now believe this is the actual most probable outcome, if not certain outcome of disaster. And therefore, of course, you have extreme fear and panic. It's the absence of love, the absence of joy, the absence of realism, the absence of silence, the absence of objectivity, the absence of selflessness, the absence of silence. So how to not get sucked? No, just don't spend your energy reviving memories, painful memories. I'm not saying to suppress them or to reject them. I'm just saying that you don't need to give them more attention than they deserve. Don't create that losing character or suffering character and believing you are that person. You are your consciousness. You are a consciousness. You are a consciousness experiencing a life. You are not a small mortal person that has a lot of problems. You are an immortal consciousness that embodies a character that goes through a very entertaining story, dramatic or comedic or romantic or all of that together, or simply sad and pathetic. It's a character. The scenario is written by you, and you don't have to stick to it. You can change the scenario if you want, but it's even better if you just let go of scenarios and just also stop believing that they are the most credible possible outcome. They are not. They are one possible outcome, and with your energy, your mental energy, you can actually tune yourself to that outcome and then experience it. Or you can tune yourself to the present moment, to joy, to love, and you will find yourself in a very different scenario, a very different story. And the trick is to not now just switch stories and get into another story again, because your stories, frankly, they suck. They are not good. You suck at making very beautiful stories. So if you want, you can improve your story making skills to make beautiful stories and then live them. But otherwise, until you reach that, my advice is just live life as it is, in love and joy, and you will see you will not end up in that disaster scenario that you envisage occasionally on the moments when you panic. But you find yourself in extremely challenging life situations simply because you believed in that scenario and you resonated with the energy of that feeling of suffering, and that generates this kind of situations. But it's not only it's not irreversible, it's in constant motion. The universe is in constant motion. It's like a dust of clouds, and you are the one deciding it looks like a devil or a pile of shit, or it looks like a beautiful funny puppy, Or simply you decide it's just a cloud of mist, it means nothing, and you focus on life, being alive, and your own state of being. And so how to overcome them? I think I already covered that. Then one of my friends mentioned his difficulty to quit smoking, and another friend proposed hypnotherapy. Yes, hypnotherapy can work. It works on the subconscious. However, it's not only in the subconscious that those addictions and habits are built. There is a little bit of a chemical attachment as well, and there is also a body habit, the habit of picking a cigarette, lighting it, holding it, and stuff like that. So sometimes the hypnotherapy is enough when it's very much a subconscious motivation, but sometimes it requires also simply more awareness. In fact, my recommendation generally to people who say they are unhappy with an addiction, be it alcohol, cigarette, or any other addiction, is to simply not immediately necessarily try to stop by the willpower, even though for some people that's the best thing and it will work to go cold turkey by sheer will. You need to have a very strong ego and to decide that your identity is the identity of somebody who does not smoke or drink or whatever. That's one way to solve the problem, but it solves the symptom without solving the underlying problem. And sometimes it can backfire because it's called suppression. And sometimes, well, most of the time suppression, after a while, the pressure builds up in the cooker and it explodes in other ways, including sickness and violence. So, no, the best is to work on your awareness, which means, okay, you indulge in an addiction, but you actually are very present. You cannot continue to do it automatically, mechanically. You do it very consciously. You feel every feeling, every sensation, every taste, every gesture related to your addiction. And you will see that you will detect that there are some things that you maybe like, but there are lots of things that really don't provide you any benefit, any pleasure, not even short term. And so gradually, by increasing this awareness, you will find there's only one or two aspects that you actually like, and maybe you can find ways to get that without getting the rest, or to find something similar that provides you that pleasure. But also, when you really increase your awareness to a very high level, you will simply realize that there's nothing that really provides you satisfaction, deep satisfaction. Frankly and truly, nothing in life, no specific experience in life provides satisfaction except simply life itself, the being alive in full awareness, in presence, in silence. So silence is not what happens when you are asleep. It's what happens when you are fully awake without being there as a person. So that covers the questions I could find. Okay, no, there were other questions from one of you. Consider making a video on the dark night of the soul. Okay, maybe it requires an entire video. It refers a little bit also to what the other friend mentioned about extremely challenging circumstances, life circumstances. The dark night of the soul is another level of extremely challenging circumstance, because it's not a material difficulty. It's actually an existential crisis. It requires a full video on the subject. I'll try and do it in the near future. Number 2, making decisions when indecisive. Yeah, or unmotivated. Well, why do you need to make decisions when you are indecisive or unmotivated? I would actually advise against making decisions when you are indecisive or unmotivated. A decision is a very important commitment you make, whatever is the decision. So I would absolutely recommend don't make a decision if you are indecisive or unmotivated. Go into silence, or at least into heightened awareness. Watch what is happening within you. Watch your indecisiveness. Watch your lack of motivation. The reality is that when you think you are unmotivated, it's simply that you don't believe you can do what you actually want to do. You know what you want to do, but you believe for some reason it cannot be done. So you are unmotivated to do anything else. So actually, when you feel or think you are unmotivated, look carefully. It's just you are actually motivated to do something else. And then indecisive, this is when you actually have too many desires. That's all. It's not that you are confused. You simply have many desires and they are conflicting with one another because in the incarnated life, time is a thing and linearity is a thing, and you cannot pursue multiple desires at the same time. Most of them will contradict each other. It's like the parable of trying to bend two bows at the same time, or to ride two horses at the same time. You can't do that. Or to serve two masters at the same time. You can't do that. Actually, you can't truly... you can't do two, but your problem, most of the time, people who are indecisive, they don't even hesitate between two things. They hesitate between multiple things, which means they are trying to follow multiple desires, and it's impossible. And therefore, they are indecisive at first, then they get exhausted and depressed, and they can even go into a deep depression after a while. Then number 3, healing the body. For example, regrowing a missing eye or soul. So healing the body or the soul, I guess, and regrowing a missing eye as an example if you lost an eye. But not regrowing a new soul. But the truth is, all this is linked. Regrowing a missing eye as an identity is really what this is about. I would not spend too much energy on healing the body. The body is your shadow, really. So to try and fix the shadow, it doesn't work. You fix your body, your true body, which is your soul, and your shadow will be fixed. So in the reference of the shadow and the body, if you don't like the shape of your shadow, don't blame the shadow or the light. It's because of the shape of your body. And in the case of reality, or this level of reality that we are talking about, which is not the ultimate reality, if you don't like your body, if there's something wrong with your body, check your soul, work on your awareness, your silence, your identity, your sense of identity, your awareness, your silence, and your love, your ability to love. This is just an intermediary, because the ultimate truth is far beyond that. But if you have an issue on the body, definitely you have an issue on the soul. And, well, by the way, let me rephrase. It's if you feel or think you have an issue with your body, then definitely you have an inconsistency, a misunderstanding, a wrong belief, a lack of awareness, or some noise in your deep understanding of who you are, of love, of silence, of awareness. But it can all be narrowed down to identity and awareness. So I would not worry about a specific recipe to fix a special part of the body. I'm not too much into that. Most of the bodily problems actually are there to serve a purpose for the maturity and the growing, so the maturity of your soul and the expansion of your awareness, the correction of your self-identity, and the increasing of your ability to be a conduit for love. So I would not focus on the symptom, which may be a deformity or a missing eye or any sickness. I would really focus on these things which are essential. And finally, about the creation of a Life Master Club, which I envisaged a couple of years ago, and I even made some experiments. I think it's not a mature project. I will definitely revisit it because I like the idea of a club for really deeply committed and passionate, loving, aware, and silent incarnated souls. So I think I've covered all the subjects that were suggested. I really thank Ren in particular and Givray and indirectly Olaf. All these are made-up names to refer to actual persons who contributed. So thank you very much. So long, seekers.